dedicated young person who is carrying out his research in studying. Hello, please, Jerome, you can mute yourself. Thank you. I was explaining that Placide Nkusi is a student at the University of Rwanda, where he is doing his master's in biodiversity conservation and natural resource management. And he's dedicated his research on working on the studies of otters in Lake Kivu for his postgraduate studies. And he actually has a brief summary of his research work on the otters, just helping celebrate the International World Otters Day. He wants to brief us about his research work. And if please have any question about his work, we will have a session where you will straight talk to him or in the chat box. So, dear Placide Nkusi, if you allow, you can simply take, let's say, 5 minutes of this time before you introduce to us the speaker of the day, Dr. Paul Yoxon. You can simply tell us about your research work, your major findings, as this research really seems novel and very interesting. So welcome and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mapendo. Let me put on my video for people who don't know me, maybe. So thank you for that nice introduction. So let me start by thanking everyone who has joined this seminar so far, and thank the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity Conservation for hosting this seminar, and of course appreciating one of the person who is going to give a talk during this celebration of Otters Day. I will introduce him later. So before I proceed, allow me to have like 1 minute. I want to share with you a small video. It's of otters for those who may be not aware of how otters are looking like, and I will then proceed by telling you how I came up by doing a research on these otters. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
So this is an otter swimming, playing in water. So reminding you that I'm attending this seminar from Kibuye. I'm in 100 meters to the Lake Kivu, almost to the shoreline. So, and this video was taken by one of my colleagues. We worked together in Kibuye. Per chance, he managed to see these otters enjoying water, playing. I don't know if they are playing, I don't know if they are fighting, but it looks amazing somehow. So this is the short video. Yeah, it's those are the otters swimming near the shoreline to the lake, in the Lake Kivu. So I've been seeing this otter species for a long time. So this species found there is spotted-necked otter. But before, I didn't have any interest in this species. But one day when I was walking alongside Lake Kivu shoreline, where people are practicing fish farming, I saw some kind of skins hung on the wall of house. And I asked one person, what is that? And it was my first time seeing that kind of skin. It was being dried. And the guy told me that it is otter skin. So it's from there, when I went home, I started thinking about that. Why is that skin there? What is there for? And I went into deep reading about these spotted-necked otters and the remaining otters. And I realized that most of the time where fishing or fish farming is going on, there is probability of having conflict between otters and human being. So from there, I had too many topics to work on during my thesis research, but I automatically decided to do something about this, and I was interested in studying on otters, and my research is about human otters conflict. So I wanted to know if there is really conflict between these otters and human being, and if there is, what kind of conflict, the nature of conflict is it? Know some other problems, concerns that may arise between otters and people. And not only for that, my research, I was also focusing on getting people perceptions of otters, assess people's attitudes in different categories. So I was sampling from fish farmers, other fishermen fishing all around the lake, and that I took a sample of some people, stakeholders in relation to biodiversity conservation, so that I can see people's different view and assess the attitude toward this species in terms of conservation. So, and that was for the purpose that by the end of my research, I will come up with some recommendations and conservation strategies that other pioneer readers can use in terms of this species conservation. So I'm still working on it. The findings are some interesting under discussions, and I'm planning that one day I will have a separate day, not today, to share with you the findings. But some of those findings is that conflict is there. Conflicts do exist between these otters and humans, but it is especially between spotted-necked otters and fish farmers. That's where the huge conflict is basing. Other fishermen were not highly affected by these otters. And one of the issues behind this conflict is because these otters prey on fishes. They are fish predators, and sometimes they can damage the fish nets. So, and apart from those conflicts, which is a threat, I may say, that these otters are facing, and I can't ignore that there is also a potential of having habitat degradation and loss. So hope soon I will have a day and present my findings for your input and advice to make it better. So working on otters, of course, you will know this international organization, this International Otter Survival Fund. It is a UK-based organization which has dedicated their time in caring, protecting, and conserving otters. There is no way you can work on otters and don't know this organization, IOSF because through different reports, activities they are doing all over the world, the probability of knowing them is very high. So that's where I came up to know this interesting organization. And by chance, it is the organization that has also set this day for World Otter, World Otter Day. And this is a celebration done every year on the last Wednesday of May every year. So it was set by this organization, and we are lucky that we are also celebrating this day for the first time in Rwanda, and we have one of the speaker coming from this organization. So the speaker is called Dr. Paul Yoxon. Paul Yoxon is the head of operations in this organization, and he is one of the co-founder of this organization, which was founded in 1993. So this is the luck we have having this important person who founded this organization. So Dr. Paul Yoxon has worked on different activities, surveys regarding otters, especially in Ireland, off the coast of Scotland, and has worked also on several international projects on different Eurasian otter in Taiwan. He has participated in the feasibility study of otter in production in Japan. And since 2007, Dr. Paul Yoxon has been involved in organizing several training workshops in Asia, Tanzania, Guyana. Probably in the future, he can also organize another one in Rwanda, we never know. And last but not least, he is behind the creation of this World Otter Day, as I mentioned earlier. So we are lucky to have you, Dr. Paul Yoxon. We are happy to have you on this day. On this day, we are celebrating otters for the first time here. And our wish is that by the end of this seminar, all participants here will be more aware of otters, know about their conservation needs, and help inspire a new generation of otter enthusiasts in Rwanda. And the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity hosting this seminar is also a center which has dedicated most of its time in biodiversity conservation, including these animals. I hope in the future there will be also some other partnership between both twin organizations. So without delaying, please, the floor is yours. So,
okay, thank you.
Yes.
And will you come now? Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody see my presentation on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very visible.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really going to talk about the 13 species of otters in the world, and also the work of the International Otter Survival Fund. This is our 30th year. We actually set up the International Otter Survival Fund in November 1993. I'd like to play a short video which shows the plight of the otters in the world. Okay, I'll go back to basics. Otters are members of the mustelid family. So they're related to things like weasels and stoats and pine martens and honey badger. And we have the wolverine in Europe. They're incredibly aggressive carnivores. People think like a tiger is such an aggressive carnivore, but the weasel, this little white animal, can kill and carry 10 times its weight in the field. There are 13 species of otter in the world. You can see that most of the populations are declining. I'm very dubious about the American river otter because America is the only country that still allows otters to be killed for fur legally, and they have no data on populations. So again, I would say I'm dubious on this, but it's quite scary that all the other species are declining. Let's look at some of the world's otters. These are the Latin American otters, and you can see the distribution maps. The marine otter is probably one of the smallest. It lives on the islands off the Chilean coast and weighs only about 5 kilograms. The giant otter is the tallest. It can be just under 2 meters from nose to tail. It also can take a caiman, and also it eats piranhas. This is a North American river otter, Lontra canadensis, and this is the one that's trapped for the fur. It's quite ironic that the Western Europe imports about 10,000 North American river otter furs a year. This is the European otter, the Eurasian otter, the lutra. Its population map or a distribution map looks really quite healthy, but we do not know much or anything about Eurasian otter populations in Russia or China. It's actually declined drastically in Western Europe from the 1950s to 1960s, and this was mostly due to chemical pollution, chemicals like organochlorines that were used in sheep dips and also vegetable production. These are the Asian otters. We still have a small population of the sea otter in Asia. The sea otter is the heaviest otter in the world, probably weighing about 45 kilograms. Compare that to the Eurasian otter that weighs about 12 kilograms. And Asia has also the smooth-coated otter, the hairy-nosed otter, and the Asian short-clawed. I was at an otter conference in 1998 in the Czech Republic, and I was speaking to the Asian otter experts, and they said the hairy-nosed otter was near enough extinct. And we managed to get some funding from the Rainforest Foundation, and we had a small research project in Cambodia and then Vietnam, and the local people on the ground managed to find small populations of the hairy-nosed otter. The Asian short-clawed otter, you can see the distribution map again. The Asian short-claws suffer as pets. If you go to, they'll kill the mother and then take the youngsters. And if you go to Jakarta on a Sunday, you'll see about 700 people walking Asian short-clawed otters on leads in the parks, which is awful. Coming to your countries, the African otters, you have again the Eurasian otter, a small population of Congo clawless otters. You also have the African clawless otter, and as just we mentioned before, the spotted necked otter. In your country, you have 3 species. The spotted necked otter, weighing about 9 kilograms. The African clawless otter, which can weigh up to 22 kilograms. And the Congo clawless otter, which can weigh up to 20. Unfortunately, these populations are still declining. So what makes all these species so special? Well, otters, they have a long tail that helps them swim. The ears, eyes, and nose are on the same level, so they can swim low in the water and just tip the nose up and breathe and then go down again. That's why it's often quite difficult to find them. They have webbed feet to help them swim faster. They can find fish in really murky waters because they use the whiskers or vibrocytes to feel for the presence of the fish. And otters have 2 layers of fur. They have an inner layer that traps air. This is the Eurasian otter. It's got 50,000 hairs per square centimeter. And they have an outer layer of fur that's like having a waterproof jacket. The sea otter, which live nearly all the time in the sea, they have 100,000 hairs per square centimeter. And trapped air is a better insulator than blubber. So, because otters don't really have a blubber layer, because they're semi-aquatic animals, so they have to live in the water and on the land. And if they have a thick blubber layer, they wouldn't be able to walk on the land. They have, of course, a fantastic animals. They have this wonderful fur. This is, again, a Eurasian otter. They are intelligent. I've seen in a zoo Asian short-clawed otters undoing the bolts on the cages so they could escape, and they've got really dexterous fingers. And they never fail to surprise you. Otters are really good climbers, especially the Eurasian otter. And we actually look after orphaned otters. Often they'll climb out of the pen, which is annoying. But the most important thing is otters are an ambassador to a clean and healthy environment. Because they live in the water and they live on land and they're at the peak of the food chain, they are an ambassador for a healthy environment. So as I said, they are at the top of the food chain. So if you have otters around, you have a healthy environment for a lot of other species, including ourselves. So look after the otters and the environment will be really good. So let's remind ourselves again what problems otters are facing. There's lots of habitat. You know, this was a nice windy river through a forest, but the logging companies come in, they straighten the river, and the otter habitat has been spoiled. The conflicts with people, they'll die in fish traps. We have an awful lot of lobster fishing off the coasts where we live, and an otter can only hold his breath for about 3 minutes. So the young otter will dive into the lobster pot, going after the bait, and then will get trapped in there. Some are deliberately trapped and killed. We still use snares in Britain and a lot of other countries, and otters will get trapped in the snare. Pollution, litter pollution affects them, and chemical pollution. I mentioned that Eurasian otter was in our country, and most of Western Europe was one of the sad casualties of the 20th century, with populations declining 95%. And this was due to the use of organochlorine chemicals like dieldrin and aldrin. They were also getting affected by PCBs, polychlorinated benthols. They were used in the electric industry, and somebody did research in PCBs, polychlorinated benthols, knock your vitamin A levels down, and you need vitamin A to fight off illness. There's also a modern problem with we all use plastic bottles and eat out a lot. Well, some of our meals out of tins, and these chemicals can leach into the food and also leach into the environment, and they're called endocrine disruptors. And Cardiff University, which is in Wales in our country, they have got an otter project, and they're finding that the penis bone of the male otter is declined by 5% because of these endocrine disruptors. Hunting, otters are still hunted in a lot of countries. A lot is done illegally. They're used as pets, as I mentioned, in parts of Indonesia, and they're also trapped for their fur. But probably the biggest problem facing otters today is lack of people working to conserve them through field work and education. A lot of emphasis all the time goes on the big, charismatic creatures in various countries, and the otters are often overlooked. So what is the International Otter Survival doing about this? The International Otter Survival Fund was started by my wife Grace and myself. We came up with the idea in about 1990, really by observing otters in the wild, and we wanted to try and do more to protect the 13 species otters in the world. So what do? We do education and training. We do baseline surveys, research. We've campaigned about the illegal trade in otters, and we do rescue and really rehabilitation. We also have worked on nearly all the 13 species in the world. We've helped people bring up the cubs in various countries using our own knowledge, the knowledge of the country, and with the help of really expert vets around the world that have worked on otters. Education and training. We have programs for children, adults, groups, and we also organize conferences. Team Otter is our education and training program for children. We train people to carry out otter surveys using the secondary signs. You know, the faces is the spraying. You can find otter runs, and if you're lucky, you can observe otters as well. But it's really by becoming an otter detective and reading the secondary signs, you've got a far better chance of watching otters in the wild. IOSF's Team Otter program is reconnecting children with nature, wildlife, and environment, and igniting a passion that will last hopefully the whole lifetime. We have a Team Otter clubs, obviously in Scotland, in Laos, Montenegro, Guyana, and Nepal, and maybe soon in Rwanda. Now these teams often keep in touch with each other, and they'll have little conferences over the computer and talk about what they've all been doing. So the Team Otter really educates children into protecting not just otters, but all of the environment. We've been working on otter rehabilitation for, well, just over 30 years, because we've ran a wildlife hospital for about 35 years, and we take in all species, but otters mostly. We often get anything up to 12 otters a year from all over Scotland and northern England and Ireland. Most of the ones who get, the mother has been killed on the road, and it's a long process because an otter will live with the mother for 13 months, so it's a long and expensive process. Probably costs us the British pounds about 12 to 1300 pounds in food and vet fees, and then the release for every otter. So we have to generate this money. We bring up our otters. It's better to bring up two together, because then they can play with each other, and the things that we don't do is imprint them. So when they're babies, they'll be on milk. It's a special milk formula because otters can't digest lactose. So if you feed them any cow's milk, it's just slowly killing them. So we get a special milk substitute that comes from America. You can get substitutes for otters or wolf or walrus or anything you want. And we feed them milk firstly, and then we feed them little bits of fish, and then they'll start eating the fish themselves, and then we ignore them, just feed them once a day, because I said you don't want to get otters used to human beings, because the most important thing is to release these animals back into the wild. The four stages of how we bring up an otter: we have a vet, because we're obviously not vets, so we always use the local vet, who's become quite an expert in otters now. We have an indoor hospital where we feed them the milk in the small bit, and then we have an outdoor enclosure, and you can see the overhang here, and we have a pool, and we have to bury the wire and overhang it, and they'll stay there until the release. And finally, this is the release. People say, don't you get upset seeing the otters go? And I always say, no, this is where they belong in the wild. They do not belong with pets or with us. So this is one of the releases on the northwest coast of Scotland. This is again a Eurasian otter. We used to do a soft release where we got a pen made and we used to bolt it together, and then we'd leave them in there for 2 days and they'd experience the smells and sounds, but they used to get agitated. So we do what's called a hard release now, and we've had a great success. Because of all the effort we put into bringing up an otter cub, we didn't want to just put them back into the wild and say, oh, that's it. We wanted to check they were integrating back into the wild. So initially we used radio tracking. This is an island off Broadford, which you can see in the distance, which is where we live in the northwest of Scotland. So we glued a little transmitter to the back of the neck, and we were finding they were eating fish in half an hour, and this transmitter stayed on about 3 weeks. So they integrated and were eating, and were quite happy after 3 weeks. We've done baseline surveys. I did my PhD on the effect of geology on the distribution of otters around the Isle of Skye, and it's all to do with the amount of freshwater pools. And this is the northwest coast of Scotland, and these are the areas we have surveyed. We're fortunate, and there's a correlation between active otter holts and resident females and resident males. So by counting otter holts, you can come up with a scientific estimate of otter numbers. Spraints don't tell you anything other than otters are present. We've done a lot of work where we've counted the spraints over 2 years and found the number of otters on a particular coastline, and there was just no correlation between spraint numbers and otters. So again, all you can say if you're finding spraints is otters are present. And as I mentioned, the spraint of the facies just really tell you otters are present. It can never give you an idea of a population size. We've surveyed otter variables. To the left is an otter holt, and this is a freshwater pool. You find with the Eurasian otter, and it's also the same as the sea cat off the Chilean coast, you never get otter populations that live in the sea unless you get freshwater pools, because the otter's pelt coated in salt water destroys the thermal insulation by about 33%. So they have to wash the salt off in freshwater pools. And this is true of otters living all along the Scandinavian coast. You just never get Eurasian otters unless you get an abundance of freshwater pools. And my otter research would link the freshwater pools to the geology of the coastline. Okay. We've used camera traps to monitor otters. This is obviously a freshwater pool. You can see the sprainting points. We've used camera traps to monitor populations along various parts of the coastline. These are some of the ones we've had. You can see these two are just coming out of the freshwater pool from washing. And this is one. This was a naughty one. He pushed the camera over. The International Otter Survival Fund has about just over 160,000 supporters in 64 countries. And in 2014, we produced a book, Otters of the World, that was redone in 2017. So we've funded many international projects on all 13 species of otter worldwide. And we've had projects in Turkey, Chile, Argentina, Thailand, Vietnam, Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, to name just some of the countries we've worked with. This is the work we've done. The blue is the work we've done in various countries since we were formed in 1993. And the orangey colours are work we're doing this last year. We funded work by local people on the diet of the Cape clawless otter in South Africa, and also the diet and ecology of the sea cat of the marine otter in Chile. The sea cat is very rare. Nobody really knew much about it. Nobody had ever worked on it before we managed to get some funding to do some basic surveying and ecology. We've campaigned to stop the fur trade in North America. I mentioned you before that they are legally allowed to trap the American river otter for furs, killing about 55,000 a year, that sort of number. We've done a community education in Tanzania and projects with fishermen and schools. We initially did some work in at Belarus with Dr. Vadim Sidorovich, and it was amazing there because you get a little river and there's hardly any prey species, and you don't get otters. As soon as you get beavers coming in and building a beaver dam, you get the beaver pond, and you get an abundance of fish species, and you get otters appearing. And he argued that if you really want to reintroduce otters into countries, especially in Western Europe, you're probably better to bring in beavers first before you bring in otters. We, as I mentioned before, we had our initial work in Cambodia, then we funded work and found a small population of hairy-nosed otter in Vietnam, and they all like the peat swamps. It's the same in Cambodia and Vietnam. They like these peat swamp forests. This is us searching for hairy-nosed otter prints. They're obviously called a hairy-nosed otter because they're only otter species that has hairs on their nose. And this is a hairy-nosed otter. This is we set up some camera traps, and we managed to get some pictures of. We used to have some good friends who were missionaries in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the fishermen killed the mother of this otter, and this Congo clawless otter, and they managed to bring it up, and it became an ambassador species to the village, and the local elder wouldn't allow the fishermen to kill otters again in his area. And so this is the otter Mazu, 6 months old, and it became this great ambassador. He eventually went down into the river because a mate appeared, and he disappeared. We've campaigned against the illegal trade in fur. As well as the fur trade, they're used as pets, and in Japan especially, they use Asian short-clawed otters as pets in coffee houses. So people go in, have a coffee, and cuddle an otter, which is quite disgraceful. The United Nations Environment Programme estimates that illegal wildlife trade is more than $23 billion a year, making it the 4th largest black market after illegal drugs, human trafficking, and arms smuggling. So it's a big business. In the past, concern of trade in skins and body parts is largely concentrated on large fauna, and the otters were neglected. But a friend of ours in India said often for every 1 tiger skin, there's 10 to 15 otter skins confiscated, and most of the otter skins are hairy-nosed otter. That's what I mentioned. This is a market in Nepal. This is 778 otter skins, which is atrocious. Yeah, you can see how many are when you look at the size of the people. And these are the Japanese otter cafes, which we're trying slowly to go against. I don't know what the people do. I don't know. I mean, if you want pets, have cats and dogs. This is the hairy-nosed otter. Was the only one in captivity, and it lived in an awful enclosure. Our organisation managed to get some funding, and we paid for the local people to build it a new enclosure. And this is it being blessed by the Buddhist monks. in the new enclosure. We've had international training workshops, Cambodia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Laos, China, Tanzania, Guyana, Malaysia was the last one last year. We're going to Mexico in November this year, and it would be nice to have a training workshop maybe the year after this in Rwanda. Is something we could organize with yourselves. We have a practical, well, we have the classroom sessions, but we always do practical field work. And this picture was us out in Laos, and we managed to find droppings of the Eurasian otter in Laos. So they do have a population over there. This is visiting a remote community during our Bangladesh workshop. We did education work with the children. This is an area where they use smooth-coated otters to shoal fishing. People can argue it's wrong, but they do treat the otters well, and the otters catch fish for the local community. We got invited that Japan had a subspecies of Lutra, the Eurasian otter, Lutra nippon, and you can see by this map it became extinct. Well, the last records were found in 1996, and we were invited. This is the last Lutra nippon picture ever taken, and we were invited over to see about reintroducing them. We went to Hokkaido, which is the island just off. It's still part of Japan, but it's just next to the Russian islands. And they were planning to reintroduce them from Russia into Hokkaido. But in the years past, they found small populations on some of the islands, so they put a halt to it at the moment, thinking they would colonize Hokkaido from these islands. We had a workshop in Guyana in 2019, and this was on giant otters, and we were watching giant otters from a boat in the river, and then somebody said, "I can smell cat," and we had this wonderful view of a jaguar. I'll just go back a bit. I mentioned before the giant otters, they pack up and take caiman, and they'll also regularly eat piranhas in the rivers. Our 2022 workshop was in Malaysia, where they all celebrated World Otter Day as well, and this was again very successful, but incredibly hot. So what can you do to help? You can take records, dead or alive. You can look after our precious environment. Litter picks use less plastic, walk, cycle more, preserve water. Set up a Team Otter in Rwanda. Tell people about otters, friends, families, colleagues, and of course support the work of the International Otter Survival Fund, and help spread the word about otters and how important they are to our environment. And you could also join in World Otter Day. World Otter Day 2022 had projects in 29 countries, which was 20% of the world's countries. And this year we've got up to people doing World Otter Day events, education work, walks in 45 countries. So otters, their life in our hands. Please help the work of the International Otter Survival Fund. And thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Paul, for this nice presentation. I have been following up a different discussion in the chat. Dear participants, please, if you have any question, feel free to unmute and ask your question, or you can use the chat box just in case. If I pass quickly through the chat, I saw Bethod answering a question about why are otters hunted. Maybe Dr. Paul can again reiterate about this threat to otters. Yes.
Why they're hunted? They're hunted for their fur, but people using certain body parts for medical purpose, especially in a lot of the countries in Asia. They're also hunted for bushmeat in certain countries in Africa and also in Asia.
Great. About the disease that otters can be used for treating, I see Method answered about a disease here in Rwanda that is called inzibyi. I wish Method can simply join back. I saw him leaving and explain a little bit about this disease called inzibyi in Kinyarwanda. Actually, maybe Placide, do you have any idea about this? I know inzibyi is normally also the otter in Kinyarwanda. Then Venan will come with a question. Thank you.
No, I haven't heard of that. I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Placide, any idea?
Yes. So I can see Method coming back, but it's a disease that attack the body. In English, it's abscess. Abscess, yeah.
Right.
So it's not easy people to accept that they are treating that disease, but through rumors, different people are testifying that skin of otters can treat abscess.
Salim commented that he's willing to help in letting the people know about the story of otters. Salim is one of the communication officer of the Center of Excellence Biodiversity and probably will work close with Placide. And you can make a story about the conservation awareness just to also support the idea by Vena on the conservation efforts. So dear Salim, feel free to contact Placide and then we can work on the community awareness about the conservation of otters here in Rwanda, especially in Lake Kivu and the fish around. Method, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
So this presentation is actually super interesting. I wish it lasted more than 2 hours. So I wanted to have 3 quick comments. And the first is a very brief story about me and the otters. So in the last two days, if not it's yesterday, I was talking with Placide, and he want to let me know about the otters, and he didn't remember even that I was a mammalian scientist. So maybe briefly to introduce myself, my research of interest is mammals, and I'm also a lecturer in the university and also working as a research associate at the Center of Excellence. So I told him that actually, Placide, I told him you are not the first person to be fond of otters in Rwanda. You are the second. You come after me, because I told him I knew otters around 2018, seeing them alive. So but the circumstances of loving them were the same. So I also
I thought we have lost you. Yeah, Method. Yes, so Placide, he's saying that he has been also very keen on working with otters. I think it's a great collaboration now bound between you and the center, of course, being part of these young generations working on a conservation in Rwanda. Yes, he's back. Yes, please go ahead.
So the second point is about the second point is a question to Ben. As I have been documenting, making intensive documentation about the mammals that occur in Rwanda, I found in different documents, sources of information, that there are many scientists support that there are two species of otters in Rwanda. So they contend that the Congo clawless otter and the African otter, if we can call it a Cape otter, say, the Aonyx capensis. So we have the Aonyx capensis and the Aonyx congicus. So they think that they are the same. Actually, it is IUCN that distinguishes these two species. So if this confusion remains, don't you think it's a big problem in conservation? Because if there are really different species, it means they have a different life histories, and they are experiencing the world and the threats in different ways. So what can you do so that the Kingdom, who is publishing, updating about the mammals, knows that there are two species and the other taxonomic portals as well? Then maybe you will answer this after my third comment, which is about the club, Otter Club, where briefly I want to tell you that I'm excited about that. And with Placid, we shall get started with building that club. With your support, it will work. Thank you.
I think it's really important to identify the individual species. If that hasn't been done, then we really don't know which species of otter you have in your country. This can be done by a DNA. It can be done on the hairs of the otter. So if you can find the hairs, some experts will be able to identify which species of otter you have.
Yeah. Sorry. Actually, as a clarification, the spotted necked otter is already confirmed in Rwanda, Hydrictis maculicollis. But the scientists say that Aonyx congicus and the Aonyx capensis might be the same species.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that before. And unless you can again work out the DNA, we won't really know. I would think.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please, once again, feel free to add a question and also to unmute. We are getting a little bit closer to the end of this presentation, but as I'm suggesting, I see Anne has a question. Please, Anne, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Looking on IUCN red list, I can see that 12 or 13 are declining. And looking on threats to this species, I can see that those species can be used as pet. I would like to know whether all otter species are friendly.
No, they're all quite aggressive carnivores. But you can get really nasty bites from them, from all of these species of otter.
Thank you.
I also have a question and also a suggestion, or probably just after Placid. Please go ahead, Placid.
So I have one question for Paul. I had it even before this presentation. I've seen that your organization is not a member of IUCN Otter Specialist Group, and you might be having a reason for that. Please, can you share with us why you are not a member?
IUCN Otter Specialist Group don't disagree with the hunting of otters for furs. The main body of IUCN have organizations like the Dallas Safari Club, and which actually one of the biggest organizations that people pay to hunt animals in Africa. They were the ones who raised $300,000 to shoot a black rhino. So we will not be part of an organization that agrees with the hunting of animals and agrees with the fur trade.
Okay, so I said I had a question, and yeah, as I earlier mentioned, I am leading here in Rwanda at the Center of Biodiversity Conservation, a team that is working on the Rwanda Biodiversity Information System to support monitoring and also to provide data for information for policy development and conservation of biodiversity in Rwanda and ecosystem at large. My question simply will be, do you have, because I saw already you have data on the otters of Rwanda. Do you have like a population trend analysis kind of data so that we can also incorporate this data into the system just to help the monitoring for the otters in Rwanda? Thank you.
I would have to look back at some of our files, but I can get back to you on that one. I don't know specifically if we have information on populations in your country, but it's something I can look back on and get back to you in the future.
Thank you very much. I will simply send you an email just as a reminder. Thank you. Any other question from participants? If no question, allow me to thank everyone who have participated into this presentation, this seminar series. But also we can announce again that seminar series are announced by week. Venon will always announce the different topics that we'll be having weekly. And once again, please always attend, ask questions, seek for collaboration. Like today, I'm strongly recommending the collaboration between Method and Placide working on the Otter so that we can have this data, but also Salim to develop a video to support the conservation of otters in Rwanda. And yeah, the center is very happy to host this seminar series. And for Dr. Paul, we thank you very much for your valuable time. And looking forward to further collaboration, but also looking forward to more other presentations about the otters, especially data for Rwanda, if there will be some, and also the partnership with the Center for the General Conservation Concern about aquatic mammals here in Rwanda. Thank you very much. I think this is the end of the presentation of the seminar story today. Thank you all.
And thank you all for listening. And
thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, goodbye now. Take care.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.